Welcome back to PodRocket, a web development podcast brought to you by LogRocket. LogRocket provides AI-first session replay and analytics, which surface the UX and technical issues impacting user experiences. Start understanding where your users are struggling by trying it for free at logrocket.com. Hey everyone, I am your host today, Paige Niedringhaus, and with me on the podcast is my co-host of PodRocket and Front End Fire, Jack Harrington.
Amazing. Hey, Paige. Good to see you again, as always.
As always, exactly. And today we are going to talk about the Octoverse report, which was released at the end of October. So I honestly didn't know about the Octoverse report until I was invited to be part of this podcast. But for those of you who are also unfamiliar with it, it is a yearly report that GitHub puts out. And it's a research program where they analyze the data from millions of developers and repositories on the platform, and then provide interesting insights into the state of software development. So it's a really cool report that's been going on for a number of years, and we're going to kind of talk about some of the highlights of it.
Right. And the whole Octo thing, like I originally was like, Octo what? It's like, oh, it's the Octo cat. Like that's the GitHub little mascot thing now that I think about it, at least kind of creepy, like hybrid octopus / cat thing.
It is. But they make it cute enough that everybody loves it and dress it up in different costumes and outfits. So yeah, it is an odd little mashup of a monster.
Tech mascot aspires to be a mashable thing.
Yeah. It's very unique and recognizable, though. That's a good thing.
For sure. Yeah, it is a fascinating report.
Yeah. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is one of the interesting things is shipping faster with AI in the loop. So obviously, 2025 has been the year of AI, just like probably 2024 and a little bit of 2023 as well. But developers are using it to ship faster than ever. So monthly issues closed jumped to 4.25 million. Code pushes hit over 82 million, and commits reached nearly 1 billion this year, which are just huge numbers.
Staggering.
Notebooks like Jupyter Python notebooks grew in usage by 75%, Docker files by 120%, hinting at kind of a faster transition maybe from experimentation into production. And AI became the standard, with 80% of new developers using Copilot in their first week, and AI-related repos hitting a record 4.3 million. So more than 1.1 million public repos that are now importing some sort of an LLM SDK into their projects. And we also saw over 1 million coding agent authored PRs this year. So Copilot is going to work.
Yeah, lots to say about that. I mean, also the whole TypeScript thing, that TypeScript has also boomed. And I think that's directly in correlation with the fact that like AI is really happy to write TypeScript because it can go in a loop and just, output some code, and then it can compile it to actually understand like if it broke or not before it runs it. So it's just much easier to go for like TypeScript as a target than it is JavaScript as a target. I think so. Didn't they say like TypeScript hit number 1 this year?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's
TypeScript
amazing.
is the most used language on GitHub, over Python, over JavaScript, over everything.
That's bananas. But I mean, you kind of think about like that TypeScript plus JavaScript, and it's just it's the language that we use nowadays for most of what we do. Yeah. And are you worried about this? Because I mean, I gotta say, like my initial thing was, oh wow, this is great. This is democratizing coding. Right now, we've got all of these new people coming in, and that's great. They're making applications and all that. But then on the other hand, right, they're making a lot of PRs. They're putting a lot of code out there that probably has vulnerabilities, and that's worrisome. I think there's a lot of big issues about this, and it's only going to get worse.
I think I'm kind of in the same boat as you, that if you're using AI tools and you're already a developer who has a decent understanding of how to write code and also review it for safety and security and just general good coding principles like dry code and reusable code and things like that, then I can see that teams might be shipping better faster. But also, if you are more of a vibe coder who just likes to let the AI agents kind of take the wheel, I can see a lot of unmaintainable code being pushed in. And I can also see, especially when I think about like the open source software, I can see maintainers and creators getting overwhelmed with junky PRs, kind of like when we did like Hacktober in the past, where people would just like submit an OSS PR just so they could get a free T-shirt or some other thing.
Right?
Yeah, where they'd change a little bit in the README, or they'd update one file, or they'd do something like that. So I think we're going to walk a very fine line between pushing more good code versus just pushing more code in general.
Yeah, I think we've maybe gone over that line. Yeah, and yeah, as you say, as an open source, contributor, right? You're flooded with these. If you are on a popular repo, you just want to go and do cool stuff, and here you are getting essentially just flooded with these vibe PRs, and you've got on the good side of it, folks trying to fix bugs, and that's great. That's nice. But then you've also got like the NPM and just more broadly, the supply chain attacks that we've seen. And, you're burned out, and here you are getting code that potentially looks like it could be helpful, but it actually has, a Trojan horse built into it. This is probably bad already, and it's going to only get worse.
Yeah. Well, kind of going along with that line, one thing that came out in the review or the report was that comments on commits are dropping about 27%. So do you think that it's AI maybe making PRs better so that there are less comments needed? Or is it just people are so overwhelmed with the amount of changes that they're just not, they're just giving the looks good to me stamp of approval and moving on.
Exactly. And not even saying it looks good to me, because that would be a comment. Right. I don't know. Who knows? But my guess is that between these two things, it's probably the latter, where it's, just folks that are burnt out and they're just like, okay, I'm either not going to respond to this, I'm just going to let it linger here, or I'm just going to take it because it looks good. And it would be really nice, if these PRs were vetted before they went in, but I don't think they are. I mean, this morning I'm having to deal with one where, good content, but not structured correctly, and now I've got to go through it. That one was actually generated by a human, though, so that's cool. All these things take time, right? All to properly do a PR review, it takes time. And
it does.
You're just flooded with them, and who's paying for this? I mean, at the end of the day, I think that's really where, like, the whole industry lives on this tenuous balance with these multi-billion-dollar corporations pushing out tons of software on top of free open source maintained out of the goodness of folks' heart, and the more that they're pushing AI and pushing developers into AI, and then that's crushing down on those OSS folks, this could all come to a grinding halt pretty quickly.
That really seems to be, when we talk about it, that seems like the thing that should be the next really important thing that AI tackles is pull requests, but reviewing them in a way that makes sense. Because I get GitHub Copilot to review some of my PRs because we have it as part of our organizational business group, whatever. But half the time the PR comments just don't apply, or GitHub will go through and it'll be like, everything looks fine, thumbs up. And you're just like, that's an
injection attack right there. What are you talking about?
Right.
Yeah.
It's one thing to have it write your code, but then it's another, it takes, like you said, it takes a lot of time to also review it thoroughly and do a good job at that. And that's where we're struggling.
And I've heard from GitHub that their policy is that high profile open source projects all get GitHub Copilot for free. I have yet to see that, and I'm on the Tansec team, which is pretty high profile. So but that could certainly be helpful. That would be nice. I mean, I think what we really need, honestly, long term, is some sort of economic model where these billion-dollar corporations that are making all this money off of this are also basically kind of funding this open source ecosystem that they're making their livings off of. And and that would certainly help motivate people to do all those PR reviews if they were getting paid for it. A living wage. Yeah.
OSS is largely still a thankless job, except for those lucky few who have either been bought by companies. So they, Vercel snaps up a few of them and helps keep them going, or the React Foundation that's just recently opened to kind of steward React into the future. But unless you're owned by one of those, Google and Angular, if you're just left pad and you're used by 70 million different NPM packages, but you're just left padding, nobody's going to fund that, but you hold up the ecosystem.
Right. Although why, I have no idea. Like why are you bringing in is odd and is even and left pad? But I totally see where you're coming from with that. And, that's a real issue, is that you get folks who, the Versals of the world that, great, they are kind of funding, those open source projects, and they're kind of housing them, but at the same time, they're making money off them. It's a profit making venture. They're making a service off of it, all that. So, it's not like it's kind of closed / open source software. It's kind of in the middle there. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you probably see more of that. And unfortunately, what my guess is that if it starts to actually genuinely collapse, you'll get this weird thing where these big companies will go and just grab all of their current packages, put them into their own private repos, and just like disconnect, be like, okay, we're good. We'll just, fork our own thing from here on out and go.
Yeah.
Which would be
we'll stay with our current version of whatever and never upgrade from there on out.
Yeah, exactly. We'll just start eating it all. And apparently I actually ran this through with Claude, and Claude was like, yeah, MIT would allow that. But copyleft wouldn't, but most stuff is on MIT. So yeah.
Yeah.
But so back to the report, interesting that they had this specific call out around broken access control being the number one code QL alert. So, there's clearly a lot of vulnerabilities in this code that is being generated, which is not great.
Do you think that there are workflows that do really benefit from AI agents, like testing, refactoring, dependency upgrades? Like if you just had to choose a few things that agents can do well, what would you say people should try and use them for?
Well, that's a great question. I would say definitely the keeping the packages up to date. That's huge, right? In monorepos, that's a big deal. And then getting into that virtuous test cycle. So certainly doing that. Does that require AI? I don't know. I think one of the things that could be really helpful is keeping docs up to date. Like that's one thing that I see a lot of is, you get somebody who puts in an API change. It actually does end up changing the surface area of the API. And then there's no corresponding README change because they just forgot, it's like there's no linkage there. But that was one of the things that I was actually impressed with Kiro, which is the AWS version of VS Code. So many forks of VS Code. But they had a hooks thing where you could say, hey, if I change the APIs, then as part of that, before you commit, here, like make sure that the docs are up to date. That's really nice.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's really nice. What do you think? Where do you think AI fits really well into this?
I mean, I found AI very useful for writing unit tests because I hate writing unit tests, but I know that they serve a purpose. They are important to a project. So I've really enjoyed being able to just tell Claude, hey, here is an existing unit test file so that you understand what it looks like and what kind of syntax I'm using. Here's the controller or the whatever that I need you to test. Go to town. And it will test all the edge cases that I don't want to. It'll test the 400, HTTP responses and the 500s and all the stuff that's like, the unhappy paths that I don't want to care about.
Yeah.
So I found it really good for that. Refactors, if I've got some gnarly files that just are doing too much in one function, it's pretty good at breaking those out into smaller functions and keeping it a little bit cleaner. Yeah. And like you said, updating documentation, which is everybody's least favorite thing to do in code, but is so much better when it actually is slightly more up to date with what the code's actually doing.
Well, especially when the LLMs have to get that data from somewhere, right? And so, we talk about like the TypeScript being the number one language, and if your types don't match the documentation, then you're going to have these issues where it tries its initial run to implement this thing, and then it runs into issues, and it's like, oh wait, the documentation lied to me and all that. So there's that. But all those iterations, all that loop around, like I'm going to write some code, then I'm going to go and to run it and build it and see if it works, and build it and see if it actually just compiles. I mean, every one of those is burning tokens, is burning your whatever it is, Claude quota or your VS Code quota, and so the fewer of those you can do, the better. So having documentation that's actually up to date and is in the LLM's hands is absolutely, really critical for this kind of stuff.
Yeah, it will
Unless
save you money.
You're a company that wants to, have people spend a lot of money on you, which I guess is maybe not. I don't know. Maybe Copilot's like, sure, you just have me do 8,000 iterations on this API and this unknown API that I've never seen before.
I mean, that's why, Claude Code has jumped to the Claude on desktop or Claude on the browser. And we have, Cursor, which now has multi-agent mode. So you can have multiple Cursor agents working on a single feature at once. I mean, it seems like they're coming up with a lot of ways to use AI in not very money saving or token saving ways, which will make the companies plenty of money, but also cost us potentially an arm and a leg.
Right? I mean, I can't even imagine, unless I had some unlimited corporate account, like saying to Cursor, hey, why don't you spin up 3 different agents, all trying to do the exact same thing, and then I'll PR review that and try it. No, I mean, 1, it's just crazy, and 2, it's it would be an ungodly amount of tokens spent on that.
Yeah. Well, let's transition a little bit more to talk about TypeScript and how it's becoming and has become the most favorite language and the most used language on GitHub. So it has overtaken Python, which has traditionally been kind of the AI ML language of everybody's choice, and it still is to a large extent. It's overtaken JavaScript, which was every web developer's favorite choice up until a few years ago. And it has over 1 million contributors this year, which is just massive, absolutely massive.
Yeah.
But they say a lot of it is driven by frameworks because they now scaffold in TypeScript by default, and AI workflows, as you said, benefit dramatically from having types that are strictly written. And while Python is still the dominant player for the AI contributors, new repos overall are in 6 languages: Python, JavaScript, TypeScript, Java, C++, and C#. That is 80% of all new projects on GitHub.
Kind of surprised that that's not more like 95%. I can't think of what the other 20% are, like Perl. Maybe a lot of PHP,
Yeah, PHP, I think, is still in there. And the fastest risers, which kind of reflect maybe this experimental tact that some people are taking, are Lua, which is for luau. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it was like a gaming language, but okay.
Yes, Roblox actually is built on it. I was looking it up earlier. It's what powers Roblox. Types, which is for formatting documents, like if you're writing like a word processor, almost kind of formatter. Astro.
Yeah, I saw that and I was like, "What the heck is that?" And what Astro is not a language. What are you talking? I mean, not you obviously, but the reporters are what? I mean, I love Astro. It's not a language,
right? And then the last one was Blade, which I believe is also for PHP. Yeah. Templating for PHP.
I think it's all by like file extension. So the fact that there is like a .astro file, I guess, means that it's an Astro language.
Yeah.
That's
so based on like who the big players are, basically TypeScript and Python. Do you think that this is going to kind of drive what our stacks look like in the future? Is it going to be TypeScript, JavaScript front ends, and then Python back ends that are doing all the heavy AI ML lifting?
That's certainly what it is currently. I was actually just at the YC hackathon, and we were using Emergent, which is a vibe coding tool. So the hackathon was VibeCon, and in order to make a project that could win, you had to use Emergent for that. And it was basically just prompt your way to an app. But you could go and actually look at the code, which I actually, having talked to a lot of the competitors, that's what they did pretty much right away. But their like default stack was fast API Python on the back end with cores, and then on the front end it was it was React, yay, but it was based on Create React app with Krakow installed. Yeah.
That's so old.
No. And deprecated.
Yes.
Like, it's like somebody talked to an AI like last year and was like, hey, I don't know anything about this front end thing. Why don't you just tell me what I should use? And some old AI was like, well, you should use Create React app. And they dropped it in there and they're like, I guess that works. Whatever.
Yeah.
So it was out of the box basically creating an unmaintainable app, like because there were also some links to private repos and things like that. But yeah, so I mean that's what they think the future looks like. I'm not so sure, to be honest. Like I see, so why is Python the ML thing? And it's because it has like the NumPy extensions, and the NumPy stuff is all basically native code. So all Python is doing is just gluing together these native code bundles that are doing the actual ML work. Yeah. And you could do that just as easily in TypeScript. So I don't know. I don't think Python has any particular like huge win there that makes it all any better.
I think Python's ubiquity has stemmed from the fact that it is more Englishy if you're not a coder by default, if you're a data scientist.
Exactly, data scientist.
Yeah, or you're a machine learning researcher, or you're somebody whose coding is not your main job. It's like it's a part of your job.
Yes.
And looking at JavaScript versus looking at Python syntax, JavaScript is quite a bit more intimidating and a little less intuitive, I guess, than Python if you're not familiar with it.
Yeah.
And so all these people who started out in the ML world before ML transitioned to calling everything AI, I think just built everything that they could with Python just because they kind of understood it and it was fairly simple to get going with.
And it had the right packages. It had NumPy. It had all that. It had all the those statistics packages and all the rest of it. But the same reason that TypeScript is now number one is the same. Could help migrate folks off of Python, which is you could have those same packages, but they would be type safe, and so that when you're asking your Claude code or whatever, hey, I want to make this, AI pipeline that goes from these images to, these concept terms, whatever, it could easily generate, I think, far more reliably generate that in TypeScript than it would in Python. And those little bits of glue code that are actually making that all happen are faster because the JavaScript VM is faster. Python is horribly slow.
It is not very performant, yes, you get right down to it.
Yeah, it's terrible.
But same thing of like, people don't know what they don't know. So you say you could translate this into TypeScript or JavaScript fairly easily, but unless somebody has actually taken the time to do that, you're just stuck with whatever the Python version of it is sometimes. But that is always my first question of like when somebody brings to me something about TensorFlow or PyTorch or NumPy or whatever is to look for the JavaScript equivalent of it. Because very often it's already out there because somebody else is like, I don't want to deal with this. Let's do it in Node.
Yeah. And I got to tell you, some of that researcher Python code, boy, it's scary. Oh my God. It's so bad. It's like, it's absolutely the cultural in the culture of if it works, ship it. Like, I don't care. Like I had one guy that was working with who he returned an array out of a function and it was like 18 elements and they were all different types. And it was, he basically just, everything was by index. And I'm like, dude, seriously, you could return like a dictionary. There is a thing called a dictionary. You can make keys. And he's like, I don't know what that is. I'm like, what? Oh God. But he knew all about the, the ML, like all the, all the math, right? But but as you say, like the coding was just sort of a necessary evil. An afterthought. And it's like, to me, like I grew up coding, and math is the kind of thing that I would like learn in order to make the game work or make
right.
trig work, whatever, that kind of things. We just came out from two different directions, and he's like dissing my thing, man.
And that's why those people who are who are shipping code of some sort, they need actual developers to do code reviews for them, because you look at it from a completely different angle and you're like, this is terribly unmaintainable. Let's refactor this, while they understand either the business logic or the math logic or the whatever behind it. But you need both.
Yeah.
You can't just have one and expect to have a working, long scale, maintainable application.
And I'll be honest with you, I actually enjoyed, once I understood what he was doing with his 18 return things, and I'd refactored it into something reasonable. I was like, it was kind of cool. I'm into the stats. I'm into how it all works. But seriously, guys, it's like, I can only imagine there, if you could like take that same thing and apply it to like a house, look like some sort of house that's out of like one of those like anime movies. Is all just sort of, things sticking out everywhere, and nails driven through everything. Like, whoops, hold on, I got my nail in my hand. Yeah. Be awful.
So do you think that kind of we talked about a little bit, there's like 6 main languages that seem to be the basis of 80% plus of what is in GitHub. Do you think that AI is going to kind of accelerate that language churn, or do you think it's going to consolidate it down and we're only going to see those stats kind of grow over time? Totally
consolidate, I think.
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you. This is something we talked about on our podcast about like the framework consolidation, and our new framework is going to be able to make it out there because all these AIs have been trained on Next.js and all that.
Right.
I'm still reasonably confident that like frameworks can make a go of it. Like I think Pansec Start's going to make a go of it because AIs can be trained to, okay, you don't make routes this way, you make them that way, kind of thing. But in terms of full languages like that, I don't think so. I mean, it's kind of break those two things down, right? You had the Python, JavaScript, and TypeScript. Really, it's JSTS. So, that's basically just, those are your interpreted languages. And then all the other ones that you mentioned, Java, C#,
C++, compiled,
are your systems languages, right? And so you got every one of those kind of plays its key role in the world, right? So JS and TS are your front end / full stack thing. Python, as you rightly say, is probably owns that ML space. C++ is going to be where you got your folks doing the driver action. C#
Java's enterprise, enterprise everything.
Yeah, I mean, I think if anything's going to fall off, it's probably going to be Java, because like the JSTS world could probably make a decent play at going into that space. And maybe C#, although I mean, that's really just driven by the fact that there is this huge world of .NET folks out there, and if you ever go to like a .NET conference, I mean, these folks just live and breathe Microsoft. It's like, I only use Microsoft products, I only use Windows, and it's like this whole ecosystem and culture of that. And so C#, not that it's not a great language, actually. C# is a great language.
Yeah.
But, it is interesting to see that F#, which is their version of a functional programming language, I was going to say that might go up against Python, but nah. Okay. No, that doesn't make any sense.
I was surprised actually that Go didn't make the list, because it seems like such a well-liked language when people use it.
Right. Yeah.
But who knows?
My last job, they had, one of my last jobs was they used Go for their like systems stuff, and I definitely liked it. Actually, I was kind of surprised that PHP didn't make the list. Yeah. Because I think it plays it into an interesting spot.
Yeah, and PHP is, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what powers WordPress, correct? Like all the WordPress sites all over the world?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Is it maybe that people aren't storing their PHP projects in GitHub for whatever reason?
Maybe.
I mean,
yeah,
I've never really been in that world, so I really can't speak to why it wouldn't be there.
Yeah, I mean, in that world, like for the WordPress folks, you do have all these extensions and stuff to WordPress, and there's a whole marketplace of them out there, and people that make, Lambo level livings, uh, you know, making extensions to WordPress. Maybe they don't host those in GitHub.
Yeah.
Could be. Maybe they just like package them and put them into, some repo for that. Maybe, if anybody wants to join in and, let us know in the comments or what the deal is of that. No, but I think as at least as a JSTS developer, I think I personally always kind of seem to forget that PHP exists, when in reality PHP runs like 90% of the web or traffic, craziness like that.
It's true. It is true, but it's also funny. It still does run a lot of the internet, but Shopify runs another massive chunk of it, because it seems like I can't go to a website today that's doing any sort of e-commerce, and if I inspect it, I will see Shopify shoved in there somehow. So, and Shopify hired the team that made Remix and React Router. So even those e-commerce sites are moving towards more of a JavaScript, TypeScript type of interface and functionality, I guess, as opposed to PHP.
Yeah, certainly. They're trying to. I think most of those Shopify sites are just still on on Shopify's core, product, whatever that is. Yeah, you can use like the Shopify API, and I think you can deploy to Shopify and make roll your own thing. Which, I think that's where they were looking at, like the whole React Router thing. But that's its own, Remix 3 and React Router is its own thing.
Very much. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about the open source, the governance, the security that you were mentioning before, and how because open source has hit new highs, even though we were just talking about some of the lows. There are 1.12 billion contributors, according to the report, 518 million merged PRs, which is just staggering to think about, and massive growth in some of the AI infrastructure repos like VLLM, Ollama, Ragflow. So alongside some of our evergreen ecosystems like VS Code and Godot and Home Assistant. But like we've talked about, the governance is not keeping pace. So I didn't realize how bad this was, because I feel like most of the stuff that I use either in GitHub or on NPM has READMEs, but only 63% of public repos have READMEs.
Oh, my guess is that, and they only have them because literally whatever they were using to bootstrap the thing had a README in it.
Yeah, exactly.
Just the stock README of whatever that was. Yeah.
So 63% have a README, 5.5% include a contributor guide, and 2% ship with a code of conduct. How is that possible?
Sigh. Yeah, I mean, I think all the Handstack does, so that's good.
Well, it definitely is miles ahead then.
Yeah, 2%. Yay. Yeah, it's sad, right? Because it really should be out there. Yeah, I think it's just because at the end of the day, like I don't know what all these repos are. Like 1.1 billion people out of a planet that's got 8 billion people on it. That means that every 1 in 8 people are open source. What? No. I mean, what? Where does this
number come? How are they putting these numbers together?
I don't know. I really would want a definition of that. Maybe is that just GitHub users? And if so, yeah, maybe like I'm sure there are services out there that like park some user data on GitHub or make a GitHub account for you automatically, and you have no idea or whatever. And yeah.
Well, it says 1.12 billion contributions. So
okay. So that
makes more sense, actually.
That makes more sense. All right, cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
There are some people who are just prolifically creating stuff that other people are consuming.
Some entity prolifically creating something where entity might be a human or might not be. Might be a bot that's looking around for, packages that are weakly maintained, but have a lot of downloads and are thus, potential vectors for, virus attack.
Yeah.
My guess.
And speaking of that, on the security side, critical fix times improved from 37 to 26 days, helped along by Dependabot, which a lot of packages have. A lot of our repos have it as well at Blues, and by AI autofix, which I have actually never used.
I've never used that either. Wow.
Yeah. Didn't really know that was a thing, to be honest.
I'll be honest. I was looking around at the GitHub settings yesterday for Copilot, and there's just so many products in there. I was like, whoa, it's grown exponentially.
Yeah. Trying to keep up with the new features that are added is almost an impossible job in itself.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you almost need somebody at work who's like the person that just keeps the whole team or all the teams sort of up to date with what they could be using or whatever. It's crazy. Yeah. Sort of tangential to this, I've heard this interesting metric about Microsoft 365. And they've got their own version of Copilot, right? And I think the percentage use was like 1.8% of all Microsoft 365 folks are using this.
Yes.
It doesn't really have
shockingly low adoption.
Shockingly low.
Yeah, and not only are people not using it, but even if they have access to it, they might be getting it for free. Like typically you would have to pay $30 a month or something on top of your Microsoft subscription to have access. But I think because the adoption rates have been so low, they're actually giving it away either at steep discounts or for free, kind of bundled into a Microsoft 365 account.
Yeah.
So
can I just encourage people out there, if you have access to it, use it. I mean, you could use it for things like grammar checking. I get a lot of emails that are just like, oh my God, did you not like I'm sure there are red
formatting you've
red squigglies around all of this. Like, what are you doing? Yeah, it's crazy.
That's true. But, going back a little bit to the security and the governance and what is popular or what seems to be growing in importance, do you think that kind of the AI infrastructure projects that we talked about, like Ollama and VLLM and things like that, are those going to become the new platforms that developers are building around, since they're obviously some of the most contributed to projects at the moment in GitHub?
Yeah, probably. Certainly, like the value of that Ollama. So if you're not familiar with Ollama allows you to run models locally. So if you have some decent GPU hardware lying around, you don't have to pay OpenAI / Perplexity, Hugging Face, Anthropic type money for these things. You can basically just use that GPU hardware to crank through making your embeddings or doing the LLM chat work or that kind of thing. And yeah, a lot of these, and we've been talking about this a lot on Front and Fire about like the idea that these smaller network models. So yeah, every model has like n number of billion, connection points. And the frontier models have, I don't know, thousands of billions or whatever. They run on massive hardware, but the smaller ones, like the 3B models, have actually gotten quite good. And you can run those on your laptop and have a chat session. I mean, you might not get really great token throughput, but you drop a decent GPU on that, and it can be snappy. And then you can go and host a service on that. And so that's why I think you're going to see a lot in that space is people want to control. There's so many projects out there that are like all of these projects, like all of this huge wave of projects. As you say, they're all using LLM adapter libraries, which means they're all basically AI projects, which means that, they could potentially, instead of going with an OpenAI subscription, go with, an Ollama dedicated hardware. And they probably wouldn't even need to host it. They could probably just go and, go to some company that has that as part of their, standard, setup is like, okay, you want to host your app? Well, cool. Here's it. You can also buy GPU access and we can go and put a model on it for you. And there you go. You're done.
Are there any models in particular that you would say you've had good luck with for running locally?
They're hyper focused, right? So if you want just a more of a chatting tool calling thing, like something I could, oh my God, you could, the usual flight reservation system thing that people talk about. There was one that I looked at just recently, small LM, where it's like SMOLLM3 from Hugging Face, where that was actually really good at doing that kind of like, hey, we'll just talk to it and it'll make a reasonable decision about calling a tool. Right.
Yeah.
And so that can actually be a really nice way to test stuff without paying the tokens. Cause usually our AI tests are, I put in enough of a prompt to make it call this tool, see what comes out the other end. There you go. Either work or it didn't, kind of thing. And so you could run that kind of thing. I haven't really looked at the small coding models, but I know some folks are using that for their like Visual Studio. They'll bring in Klein or something like that, and then they'll just use like Ollama with like I think there's a bunch of different little coding models out there that are supposedly, pretty good. And that's where I see, that kind of thing going, is because these models, these high-end models like the Sonnet 4.5 and all that are all heavily subsidized. So it's all, you pay $1, they're paying $3, right? Because they just want customers. That's not sustainable. So my guess is what's going to happen is the frontier models are going to become more like project manager kind of folks. And then they're going to farm out like, oh, we need a form here, to some really small, 3B model that's really good at turning human readable text for a definition into, a formic form or a Tansec form or whatever.
Yeah.
And, that kind of thing. So it's going to be interesting. But yeah, no, I definitely see a lot more interesting.
So it'll be like kind of like the sub agent orchestration that we've talked about, and that some companies have already kind of tried to pioneer, of like one main orchestrator and then all of their little sub agents doing little tasks underneath them.
With specialized models that are really focused for that, which is good. Because I mean, do you really need an application, a model that can talk to you about heart surgery, that can also do, a form, an HTML form, you don't need that. Well, what they call a mixture of experts model, MOE model. Yeah. I'd rather have one model that's really, really good at heart surgery and another that's really, really good at coding.
And honestly, that kind of a workflow seems to have proven out, at least right now, to be better. Like if you have multiple different things that your app needs to do that are LLM related, breaking them down into discrete individual tasks that have their own prompts and have their own context seems to work a lot better than just giving it all the things at once and asking it to try and make sense of it.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go back a little bit to talk about how the documentation, as we've said before, is not really keeping up in terms of the OSS things. There, readmes are out of date or there are none. Do you think that this docs gap is going to be a problem for people who want to get into OSS or want to become first-time contributors to it?
I think it's an opportunity for sure. And it's never been easier. If you want, and that is a risk-free PR. If somebody just wants to go and, update my architecture.md file, great. I mean, I don't even have to like that, as long as it looks good, like LGTM, add a comment, mark that good, because there's no way it's gonna do bad stuff in my repo unless I get some really weird setup. So yeah, no, that is a fantastic way to get started with an open source journey. And I know that obviously hiring is a big thing right now, and it's hard to get jobs, hard to differentiate yourself. And one of the ways that we've talked about in the past is you can either write articles, get yourself out there, right? Do some podcasts. I think writing articles is probably the easiest way to go. Or do some open source contributions, or both. And we've talked about the path to writing articles is pretty easy. I mean, if you go and have some technical problem, like, was really hard for me to figure out how to make a login for this particular system, and there didn't seem to be any documentation out there on it. And you're keeping notes in Markdown as you go. Just add some little pieces of text in between the two, and now you got yourself an article, and then they become the person who knows about that. And and VS Code, they'll do a lot of tab completion for you. They might write the article for you. It's pretty easy.
It's true. It's true. Yeah. Even in this AI-driven world that we live in now, you can still stumble across stuff that will be helpful either for future you, because I've definitely written articles like that that were so helpful for me years down the road, or that will also be helpful to other people and the LLMs that are trying to figure stuff out, because there's still stuff to be figured out. And it really helps to have somebody write about it, because that also, for me at least, and for probably everybody, it uncovers stuff that you don't really know, because you have to try and teach someone else. So those things that are kind of fuzzy, you'll get a much better understanding of by the end.
Yeah. What was this little option? What did that mean? And then it's like, oh, well, I actually have to write something about that. So I gotta go look into it. So that does that. And here I could have saved myself some time if I just, not read the docs, but I guess they're bad, but yeah.
Or if it's just something new, like if it's the new version of Svelte or the new version of TanStack, or just something that the LLMs haven't trained on yet, you can be one of those subject matter experts that they turn to or other people turn to learn about this stuff.
Yeah, I wonder if we're going to see, because there's this thing called Context 7, which is kind of interesting. It's an MCP server that you can put on your Visual Studio Code, and then it goes and I think it looks at your local package JSON, and it'll go and grab, it'll go and turn the docs for whatever that is into, into MD files for the LLM. And I've had kind of mixed success with that. I tried it on AI SDK V5 to V4 to V5, which is a big pain in the butt. And it didn't get it. It kept rolling back to V4, and it's like, I think it's this. And it was like, and then it would chew tokens, getting those type errors,
Yeah.
And it would be interesting. I wonder if there's an opportunity there to have curated versions of that, where somebody's actually a human has gone through this and been like, oh, that's wrong. That's right. That's wrong. And then, clean it up. And I don't know, maybe that's a service. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, Context 7, I've used it a little bit, although I tend not to be on the latest and greatest, cutting edge JavaScript frameworks or whatever. So I haven't had too much of that issue, but yeah, it's right now, I think it's just a free open source thing that you can add. But if somebody were to turn that into a paid product where you could get better results, that would definitely probably be something that people would be willing to pay for. All right. So one other question or thing that we can talk about is just the complete lack of codes of conduct and contributor guidelines. Do you think that those should be maybe a new requirement if you're going to have some sort of an open source project? I'm not sure how GitHub would enforce it or how anybody else would, but my goodness, it doesn't need to be long. Just put a couple lines in there about be nice, use PR requests.
Right. Yeah,
don't push to main, things like that.
Yeah. Although I'm pretty sure a lot of projects have, push to main. And maybe for entrance into an NPM, or something like that, you'd have a sort of a low bar threshold on that. I know that NPM is now enforcing that you have to have 2FA on some of the more popular projects. So yeah, there really should be, let's be honest. But a good code of conduct is always, just for everybody listening, just don't be a jerk, right? Please don't be a jerk.
There are people on the other end.
Yeah. And also don't assume that OSS folks are just your, servants or whatever, right? I've been in a bunch of Discord channels of folks who are like, I need this answer now. And it's like, I'm not, what are you talking about? Your crisis is not my crisis. That's not okay. Don't do that.
Thanks for reporting this bug. If you would like to fix it, we would be happy to review your pull request.
Exactly. Right. And those are often coupled with the terrible bug, which is, it doesn't work. What do you mean? What does that mean? It doesn't work. Right. Like that's crazy. Yeah.
Oh man. We could go on about this for a while longer, but to keep the podcast moving along, we will take a short ad break and then we'll go on to our hot takes for this episode. So this episode is brought to you by LogRocket. LogRocket provides the AI-first session replay and analytics, which surface the UX and technical issues impacting user experiences. Start understanding where your users are struggling by trying it for free at logrocket.com. Okay, so this is one of my favorite parts of every panelist episode that we do, which is the hot takes. They can be rants about anything that's going on in the dev world. They can be ridiculous. They can be serious. So, Jack, do you have a hot take for us this time?
My hot take is I think these billion dollar companies should be ponying it up for this free software. Like we're being exploited, and I'll be honest. Like that hackathon that I was just on, it felt a little exploitative. Like, you had these people who were desperate for jobs and you told them that, if they win this contest, they would get an interview with YC, not even a guaranteed job, but just a guarantee of an interview with YC. But, what they were doing was helping this company out. This company, it has millions of dollars of investment, right, to go and debug its code and all of that. And it's like, our whole tech system is kind of built on multiple layers of exploitation. And it's going to come crashing down here at some point.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a hot take or what.
No, but it's kind of the same thing that happens when you're an artist, for instance, and they're like, oh, we're not going to pay you to do this thing, but it's exposure.
No, yeah, right? Yes. Yeah. But that's exactly, you're right. That's exactly it. Your OSS is getting paid in exposure, which is not great.
That doesn't pay the bills for anybody.
Exposure don't pay the bills. Exactly.
No, I think that's a really good one. So my hot take for this episode is going to be that I don't think many of these AI-powered browsers are going to actually catch on with the general public. I think that everybody who is using them, they're all tech people. They're all excited about new tech.
Yeah.
They're all seeing all the problems with them, the privacy concerns, the open source or the script injections that are happening, the prompt injections. And I honestly just think that normal people who aren't aware of these things are not going to adopt them. Like everybody knows how to use ChatGPT, but beyond that, I don't think they're going to get the benefit of these AI browsers the way that the tech world hopes they will.
I don't even think everybody knows how to use ChatGPT. I think that's, there's certainly an element of the current generation of young folks. I know one of my nieces is like literally has a long-standing relationship with GPT. Probably the most consistent man in her life. But yeah, I mean, but she only uses it on mobile, right? And so she's not going to get any benefit out of that. And you're right. You're absolutely right. It is going to be a bunch of hardcore geeks, and it's going to try and fill that void that we've been talking about for years of the agentic thing that's going to go do all my travel agency stuff for me, which most people don't even want anyway. And I probably wouldn't want, So
no, all we've seen are the limitations of these browsers and how bad the agents can be, not how they're saving anybody any time or frustration, it seems like.
And so, I mean, that prompt injection thing, has anybody come up with a cure for that?
No.
No. Yeah. So
every time a new browser comes out, a new paper comes out on how it's vulnerable. That's all that happens, is that there's yet another attack vector that's been opened up.
Yeah, on a browser that 0.00001% of people in the world use. Yeah. Whoops. Oh well. Yeah. I wouldn't want to be on one of those teams. I don't think there's a lot of there.
Yeah, I think that the idea is great, but I think that the execution is not going to make it ubiquitous and adoptable by the majority of the world in the end.
Completely agree.
Yeah. Well, Jack, thank you for joining us. It has been a very fun topic of talking about the Octoverse report that neither of us knew existed before now. So that was really cool. I'm sure we'll talk about it again in the future, and we'll see if TypeScript continues to rule the world.
It will.
GitHub.
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks to everybody who's been listening, and we'll see you on the next episode of PodRocket.